What's up, everybody? Ben Razza here for Odd Shopper, bringing you my favorite bet of the day to get things started Monday, December 12th in the sports world. A little Monday Night Football action, some college basketball, NBA, NHL, maybe something else. I don't even know what's on the schedule. There is a ton of sports going on, and that's why we're so glad that you found Odd Shopper. We break down all things betting, all free content. If you like what you see, you want to support us, join that community, like, subscribe. We are marching towards 50,000. We got a new week in our hands, and I needed it. I know some of us, some of my colleagues, we could say on the channel, have been on fire. I love to see that. I have not. I had a terrible week last week. We get the fresh start now. That's what I'm looking forward to. I'm going to talk about my favorite play. I'm going to talk about how to turn $5 into $150 just by picking a simple winner on the money line. It is that simple. But let's get into my play today. We're going to Monday Night Football. Not going to a side. Going to the prop world. And I have, obviously, because it's my favorite play of the day, I like this spot. Ramondre Stevenson. We're going to his receptions, his receiving yards more specifically, over 33.5. First things first, I shop the line. There's 35.5 out there. There's 34.5. There's 33.5. Minus 125, little juicy, just a touch, but still a good enough number. Now let's get into the game. The Patriots, they don't have much margin for error. They're 6-6. They got to beat teams like Arizona. It's a pseudo toss-up game, slight favorite. They're on the road. That's good. No weather concerns, anything like that for our prop. Should be a competitive game. Arizona's terrible. They're 4-8. They're 1-6 at home. They're coming off just another brutal loss to the Chargers. Before that, the Niners crushed them. Kyler, Hopkins, they just a lost season in various ways. Who knows long-term who their coach will be? Maybe they stick with Kingsbury. Maybe they don't. None of that's relevant to this bet. Let's get into the bet. First things first. Damian Harris is sporting a doubtful tag. Doesn't look like he's going to play. That means that Stevenson has full control of this backfield. He played 98% of the snaps last week. These are his targets over the last 6 games. 8, 7, 7, 6, 10, and 8. It's gone over this number.
What you say?
Maybe chess at a high level.
He could probably do a lot of things with his brain at a high level. That
Very smart guy.
Yeah.
He irks me, though. I've said that many times. I don't know why. I don't know why. I'll tell you, though. I'll tell you what, though. Go ahead. Ben was talking about he thinks the Dolphins are overrated, and I hit the Chargers money line yesterday. Felt like one of those. Aren't the Chargers just one of those teams though where like every game they play is a 1-possession game, so every time it's a toss-up and they can get the win. Getting 3 plus the hook at home seemed pretty crazy for that team, even though Miami has a good offense.
Yeah, I mean that you had the crazy fumble Ruski type thing that got the Dolphins one of their scores. So you could argue the margin of victory should have been even wider. But yeah, I agree with you in that spot. I mean, the Dolphins have shown cracks, especially of late.
It's going to be a fun end of the season, and we're here to talk about it. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Stokastic.com NFL Showdown Strategy Show. Let's go. Closing out week 14. After this, only have 4 weeks to go. And I, my friends, will be completely frank with you. Dreading week 18, where I have to talk about 16 games on every single show. So we're going to enjoy this as much as we possibly can and have some fun with it because it's the Arizona Cardinals hosting the New England Patriots. They're 2-point home dogs, 43-point total. I'm Dave Loughran at Lofty_D, LOUGHY_D, joined by Matt Gajewski, as always, at Matt_Gajewski. Talk a little Monday Night Football here to close out the week. What's going on, brother?
Not much, man. It was a good slate of football yesterday. A lot of high-scoring affairs, a lot of chalk hit as well, but we also had some diamonds in the rough, your Evan Ingrams, which was exciting to see. So, you didn't have to play complete chalk. You could have got off the board. And some pretty interesting lineups ended up taking down tournaments, which was cool to see. And I'm excited for the game tonight. It looks like it's going to be a pretty good one. 43.5 total. That's a little higher than a lot of showdowns we've had this year. So maybe we see some scoring.
It's fun because you and I, every week, we get to hit the two bookends of every slate, right? We kick it up. We kick off the week with Thursday. We close it out with Monday. That Thursday night game was just outlandish. And we see a lot of weird stuff in these games. But yeah, yesterday was crazy. I didn't have Ingram, so I wasn't winning any tournaments, but Chigo Konkwo, let's go, baby. Nice little game out of him. 2,700, got it done. Miles Sanders, he's now third in rushing touchdowns, fifth in rushing yards. He's the RB9. So that's coming to fruition. Overall, had a nice day. Nothing insane, but had a nice day. And we live to see another one of them. But you're right. There were some crazy plays that really broke out. And you're right, chalk hit as well. But some of them, modest, like Amon-Ra St. Brown, not the best day. In that same game, Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson goes the length of the football field almost 2.5 times and doesn't find the end zone, but you're not going to complain about that. McCaffrey had a huge game. Brock Purdy looks good. Eagles routed the Giants. Tampa Bay stinks. Carolina getting the road win. I love that because I was on Carolina all week. Just a lot of really fun games as well.
Yeah, there were. And you're right about the chalk. Like Pollard, 22.5 almost. And he didn't have like a flame on DraftKings. Still a really good score, but he didn't break this slate. Derrick Henry, 25.5, essentially all of it coming in the first half. So it looked like you were on your way to breaking the slate if you played him, but then just 2 yards, I believe, total in the second half, which is wild to see. But he finishes with the 25.5. Great, but didn't kill you. You definitely didn't need those guys to win. Solid if you had them, good scores, but you could have played a lot of guys off the board yesterday. And I think the only player you absolutely had to have was Evan Ingram. And everybody else, I think you could have made roster constructions with or without them and probably got pretty close to taking down tournaments. I had Ingram in one lineup. It actually got pretty close. I was sitting in like top 100 in some of these large field stuff going into the afternoon slate, and then it completely unraveled. I was actually debating whether to swap. I had 3 players left. It was MVS as a punt play, pivoting off like the Houston chalk, and then Deebo Samuel in the flex and 49ers defense. So obviously MVS is the pivot, completely derailed the lineup, and Deebo getting hurt didn't help either. But it was nice to have a sweat for one of the few times this year.
Absolutely. And yet, listen, you didn't need Evan Ingram to have a good day. You needed Evan Ingram to win tournaments.
Yes.
Yes. That you could still have it. Like I said, Okonkwo at basically the min getting almost, close to 20. That's perfectly that's going to put you in good positions. It's just not going to win it when you have Evan Ingram going off like that. But yeah. Oh, and hey, shout out to John in chat, John Amel. He was talking J.K. Dobbins all week long. I actually thought about that when I saw that game, John, because I know all week I had seen those J.K. Dobbins comments in chat. So congrats on that. But yes, DeAndre Swift as well. That one was tough. That was rough. And, in some of these single entry contests, I'm looking at his ownership. DeAndre Swift got very, very popular in some of these. So there was also some chalk that ended up just really busting as well, Matt, despite some of the heavy chalk coming in hot.
The Swift thing was really surprising to me because I built a fair amount of lineups on Saturday, and then I had a lot of Swift, not expecting him to be that owned. There were a lot of good running back plays, I thought. And then I checked our ownership as we were doing the live before lock stream, and suddenly DeAndre Swift was climbing, and he had gotten close to 20% by lock. So our tools kind of saved me. I eased myself off DeAndre Swift seeing that. And I almost was like, I don't believe this. I don't think he's going to be this owned, but trusted the tools, backed off him. And I was kind of saved a little bit. He might have been in that lineup that finished really high for me, but I ended up pivoting. So I'm glad I did so.
You still had a good week though?
Yeah, it was a good week. Better than most. No wins. So, nothing life-changing, but yeah, it was solid. It's been
awesome.
Been a good season so far.
That's where the ownership and the leverage and all that stuff comes into play so heavy with guys like DeAndre Swift. Because if DeAndre Swift's not popular, he's a great play. If he starts getting real popular and you're making those pivots like you just talked about and getting off of him as a result or getting underweight, I mean, is there any better example of using the tools to make decisions on a guy than DeAndre Swift?
No, absolutely. And a lot of times I think I can outsmart ownership. The truth is I can't, not in the long run. So I tell myself, you got to trust them. And this time it actually really helped me. So I was very happy with that.
Let's talk a little Monday Night Football. Happy to have you guys with us as always. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't done so yet. Subscribe to the channel. All this stuff helps us. It goes a long way, I promise you. Even, commenting in chat or leaving a comment down below if you're listening after the fact. We always try and respond or at the least read all of your comments. And if you're listening in podcast, appreciate you too. We'll give you a rating, subscribe to the podcast. Tell your friends about the strategy show. We still got plenty of time to go in the season. So let's kick this one off. Talking Patriots here, 22.5 point total. I don't think we can start anywhere other than Ramondre Stevenson right now. You're talking about Damian Harris being doubtful for this game, hasn't practiced all week. Jacoby Myers, by the way, just for those of you tuning in, just to give you out of the gate, he is already ruled out. But Ramondre Stevenson, what an interesting game this is for two reasons. How often do we see, a running back play 98% of snaps? He played 53 of 54 offensive snaps last week. But then on the other side, not to go all over the map here, James Conner, they had a bye last week, but in week 12 played 97% of snaps, 64 of 66. So you have two running backs, and we'll start with Ramondre Stevenson, with Damian Harris expected to be sidelined, that are playing, or at least recently, almost every single snap of the game.
And unfortunately, Ramondre Stevenson isn't priced like it. Now, at first glance, this might seem like great. I just put Ramondre Stevenson in, and then I only have to figure out 5 other spots in my lineup. But he's so underpriced that he's going to be significantly owned. He's by far the best play on the slate in a vacuum. And his captain ownership is going to be absurd. I ran optimals this morning, and we're going to look at a lot of really chalk builds. And Ramondre is probably going to be the captain in most of them. Got 100% Ramondre captain, which is unbelievable and shows how far he projects above everybody else.
Last night, I didn't play super heavy because we had my wife's birthday's coming up. We had people over. They left, later in the night. We got a little bit of action in. And as I'm looking at this, because I hadn't even looked at that slate until probably 7:00 Eastern time. And I was just getting funneled to so much Mike Williams because that price, fully healthy, no injury designation. How do you not get a lot of Mike Williams in there at the discount? Well, I think he was like 7. I don't know if you played last night, Matt, but I think he was like $7K flat or something like that. He's very cheap, very cheap. And of course, you're still talking about a difference here because there's still Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler and all of that. It's not apples to apples. I'm not saying it is. What I am saying is that when you're getting these mispriced players, he was $7,000 on DraftKings, only I think 10K in the captain or whatever, 1.5 is. When you're getting Ramondre Stevenson at 8,800 and then 13K, what is it? 13.2 in the captain spot on the field for almost every snap on a team that is largely devoid of weapons elsewhere. And he is an excellent pass catching back who is now seen. Listen to this targets. Listen to these just raw targets since week 7, 8, 7, 7, 6, 10, 8. And he's catching almost all of them. I'm not so sure I really want to overthink this. This isn't to say that like Marquise Brown, now that he's healthy, coming off an 8-target game in his first game back, they said they'd ease him in. He played like 96% of snaps. Or DeAndre Hopkins aren't viable options in the captain spot. Anything can happen. But I don't want to overthink this too much, just given how good Ramondre Stevenson is.
Absolutely. We've talked about this a lot on Showdown. It's like the Lamar Jackson stat. Like, you want to play him. It's not, do I want to fade him entirely? It's, do you want to play him, and where do you want to play him? Do you want to play him in the captain? Do you want to play him in the flex? Which is, when we have players like this, the tools are extremely helpful for me because, in my mind, I'm thinking about, okay, what is the frequency I should be playing him in the captain? And I don't have a great way to gauge that in my mind, but our top plays tool, especially our Showdown top plays tool, is really helpful for situations like this. We have him projected for 25% captain ownership. 1 out of every 4 lineups, if the slate locked right now, would have a Ramondre Stevenson captain, which is absurd. And then you look at the frequency, which he's actually the top captain optimal. We have him at 21.4%. That's a pretty decent gap, negatively leveraged. But then you look to the utility spot, 58% ownership there, 70% to be in the utility optimals, one of the 5 positions. giving him extremely positive leverage, but it's coming largely from playing him at utility, which I think makes a lot of sense today, just gauging the entire outlook of this slate. There's not a lot of studs to target. Kyler's been bad. Mac Jones has been bad. There's no Jacoby Myers. I mean, maybe you see like a DeAndre Hopkins or something pop in captain, but who else are people going to be clicking on a captain, especially when you consider price? You start looking at Kyler captain lineups. He's like $3K more than Ramondre Stevenson. Your lineup is just flat out worse on paper if you play Kyler. You play Ramondre at captain, and the salary relief he also provides allows you to get more studs. So I think this guy is just going to be wildly owned at captain tonight, and for good reason. But at what point do we need to consider playing him in the flex? And that's where I'm at.
I agree. And also, we have a few guys with really nice positive leverage in the captain spot as well today. Like, This is projected to be a low-scoring game, number one. It's unlikely to be one of these games that just shoots out. Even like Devontae Parker, I don't think is crazy at captain. He doesn't excite you at all, but Jacoby Myers is out. Devontae Parker has proven at least, once or twice this year that he can have big games when the opportunity is provided to him. We have Nelson Aguilar with a 5% optimal captain probability. Now, only 1.5% top play probability, but you don't always need these guys to be the top overall play, especially when you're getting some of these low scoring games. It's very possible that no one goes nuclear here. And, a Devontae Parker or a Nelson Aguilar goes for 4 for 70 and a touchdown. And that ends up being more than enough there at captain. And it gets you essentially anything you want. I'm just kind of fascinated by how many guys have this positive leverage at captain. Now, granted, for example, Parker is what, 4.5% owned to captain, 4.5% optimal. But I still think that just given the fact that, so really no leverage there, Aguilar slight leverage, but just given the fact that with no Jacoby Myers, with how, as you mentioned, how popular Ramondre Stevenson is going to be a captain, there are ways that you just make sure. I'm going to probably have Stevenson in every damn lineup, even if it's not captain. But there's a lot of interesting ways to get different at the captain spot. And I don't think you're going to need a massive heroic type performance in order for it to put you in a good position.
I think so too. And to your point, you want to play Ramondre, I think, no matter what. And if you do play him in captain, I don't want to come out here and say you can't play him there. I think right now, if the slate kicked off this moment, I would play more Ramondre flex, but I'm certainly not going to fade him captain. You just need to be smarter about where you play him. And luckily, outside of the running back position, we kind of have a slate where we do have some rotation. You have players that rotate on and off the field at receiver for New England. Arizona is going to do this to some degree. So I think we can get enough low-owned plays around Ramondre to still play him in the captain, but I think you just need to be very careful if you're doing so.
Yeah, no question. Devontae Parker interests me though, because he's had a fair amount of deep shots this year. Like, even if you're just looking, I don't want to make it seem too simple, but if you're looking at no Jacoby Myers, so Parker probably gets more opportunities. He's had some very long receptions this year. And again, I'm not sure that you're going to need an insane game, right? He has 3 40+ yard receptions on the season. Even 2 games ago, he had 4 for 80, no touchdown. But if you're 4 for 80 game and a touchdown for Devontae Parker, and granted, it's not like he's dirt cheap. I get that too. But outside of Ramondre Stevenson, who do we look towards in the passing game? It comes down to Parker, comes down to Aguilar. You're talking about guys like Kendrick Bourne, Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith. It's very possible that one of Parker or Aguilar could end up having that type of game that you need to get you there. Nelson Aguilar, as a matter of fact, just 2 games ago against Minnesota, 6 for 65 and a score. So yes, this wide receiver core is not exciting, but we don't have other games to choose from. We have one other team to choose from, and you're missing your top receiver. So I guess what I'm saying, it's not unprecedented that one of those 2 guys has a good game. And we've seen it on more than just a couple of occasions this season.
Absolutely. And I like that there's multiple of them. So you can hopefully mix and match, like once ownership is updated out of inactives and when the live before lock show is going on, make sure to check that out. You'll probably have a good idea of where you want to play these guys. I do think Devontae Parker's the best play in a vacuum. I fully agree with you on that. Jacoby Myers, he played last week, but he wasn't full. So we kind of got a little bit of a taste of what they might do without him entirely. And we've seen this a couple times now this year. They only played him for 31 snaps, so he was limited. Devontae Parker is the only player that had a full-time route share with this team. 47 of 54 snaps, ran the most routes of any player on the entire team outside of Ramondre Stevenson, crazy enough. It speaks to how good he is as a play. Yeah. Let's just say among pass catchers, like legitimate receivers, tight ends, he was dominant in terms of routes run. And I think eventually that's going to come down to more targets. And maybe we haven't seen it. Nelson Aguilar pops up for a big game here or there. But the snap gap, the route gap between these guys is pretty wide. So just in a vacuum, I think Parker's the guy you want to get to. He's not expensive at all. He fits into lineups easily, but I'm going to be watching ownership closely because if the field starts to realize, okay, outsnapped Nelson Aguilar by 17 last week, and he probably is going to do that again here. They're going to rotate receivers. Maybe you do want to play some of these other guys as pivots, your large field GPP options. I think to rank them, Aguilar is going to be the second most involved. He's really the only guy on the team that has like a legit field stretching capability. Tyquan Thornton does have it, but he's just really raw as a rookie. You're never going to see a full route share from Tyquan Thornton. I think we can talk about him as, like GPP punt style plays, pivot plays. He makes sense down there, but he's not locked into any role whatsoever. He'll play on the field, but that kind of speaks to the role for all these guys. I think next most consistent is probably Aguilar and then Kendrick Bourne if you're just looking at the top three, but you can make an argument once I think you get down to like the Bournes. All right, if they're going to all rotate snaps, why wouldn't I just punt down to a guy like Tyquan Thornton? But ultimately, the just number of these guys makes it interesting for GPPs because it's not locked in how many routes and targets and snaps they're going to get.
Yeah, very much so. And we had a comment in chat from, where was it? From Steven saying that DK didn't add Marcus Jones on offense.
Yeah, he plays defense.
What?
Yeah, he plays defense primarily.
Yeah, but I'm saying he played three snaps at. I think he lined up at wide receiver on 3 plays, and he had that 148-yard touchdown last week.
Yeah, he's a funny guy to look at. He played at Houston in college, and he played both ways, a fair amount. And he was their primary kick returner, All-American kick returner. New England drafted him to play defensive back, but this is, if you've been watching like college football, this isn't new. He played on offense plenty with the Houston Cougars. So I'm not surprised they drew a play. He's just like an incredible athlete. And generally you don't see this at the NFL level. Guys specialize in their positions, but he's done this before.
Just to close out the pass catchers for the Patriots here. Hunter Henry, he's going to be on the field a lot. We know that much. Back-to-back 5 target games. The only issue I have with Hunter Henry is I would honestly rather play Devontae Parker or Nelson Aguilar, I think. It's not to say I wouldn't roster Henry because, and you mentioned like there's so many different ways that Mac Jones is going to try and get the ball to players and none of them who are particularly exciting. And Hunter Henry probably, if you get in the red zone, has, more touchdown equity than the others. But he definitely is someone who is dependent on scoring. Not that it can't happen, but he is dependent on scoring. He will be on the field a lot, though. That's worth pointing out. He has seen, a relatively, okay target share over the last couple of weeks. So he's there. He's there if you need him, Matt, but he's not particularly cheap.
No, he's in the same range as Parker and Aguilar. I think those are clearly the top 3 for me. Yeah. I would prefer Hunter Henry to Kendrick Bourne. I think Kendrick Bourne could eventually start losing snaps to guys like Tyquan Thornton, but very close between all of them. We're in agreement on, I think, the order we'd rank them. It'd be, correct me if I'm wrong, Parker 1, Aguilar 2, Hunter Henry 3. And then if I'm not playing those top 3, just give me Tyquan Thornton. I'll just punt all the way down and save the salary. But how do you view it?
Exactly the same way. Yeah. It just from an opportunity cost standpoint, it feels kind of gross going to Kendrick Bourne over any of those 3 at like almost identical pricing across the board on all 4 of them.
Yeah. With that said, watch him closely. If you see the ownership gap really start to widen, it's not right now. They're actually pretty close. But if that changes, that's where I would get to Bourne. But, if it's going to be close, he's clearly behind them in terms of the pecking order. And, anything can happen on a 1-game slate, but trying to reasonably predict outcomes if they're this close in ownership. Devontae Parker projects better. He's going to get there more often.
Right. That's the issue. I mean, Parker's only pulling 5% more ownership right now than Kendrick Bourne at the utility. Him and Bourne and Hunter Henry are basically 1% ownership off Aguilar. I mean, we have Parker at 24, Aguilar 23, Henry around 20, Bourne at 19. You're right. That's real close. That's not enough to move the needle yet, unless it changes. So, yeah, good call there. All right. And if you wanted 3 free days to get all of our tools, including, this top showdown play, single game plays tool for DraftKings, FanDuel, Yahoo, it gives you top play probability, optimal captain probability, ownership, both in captain and utility spot, probability they're going to be 2 through 6, optimal utility play, leverage score. It's an amazing tool. Get all of our NFL tools completely free for 3 days. If you wanted to use a link in the description or the one that Mike can throw in the chat, that's ownership, top stacks tool for main slates. What else? Everything, the new lineup generator, the player projections, the boom bust tool, or Matt, what if I said they could just sign up at Prize Picks and get an entire month free, not just for football, but for every single sport? I think that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, that's an unbelievable value.
Yeah.
I can't even speak to how much our tools help me. We've already talked a lot about the ones that help me with Showdown, but NFL, college football, those are my primary sports, but those aren't on every single day. I like to dip my toes in the NBA waters once in a while. And I use things like the lineup generator to save time outside of my regular work when I'm just watching sports. And I can't tell you how much it helps.
Like if you talk to someone like Neil, right, who's had a lot of success. If it's the 3 of us, you, me, and him sitting around, like we're going to know probably more about football than he is, just in terms of like the game and every player and every role they play. But his ability to interpret these tools has made it so he's had some monster. And obviously Neil knows football. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that the ability for so many people to interpret the tools is so much more important than just knowing the game. That at this stage of the game with DFS, this as well as I do, Matt, like just knowing football, just knowing basketball is not enough anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And at some point with a guy like Neil, it's like, check the tapes. The guy's over $1 million in lifetime profit. It kind of speaks for itself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when you use the link, sign up at Prize Picks in the description or in the chat, it's $120 value, everything free. All of our tools across the board, including the lineup generator that Mike has up on the screen. Very sick tool. We now have swap in there. You can swap players out. You can see your exposures to everybody. You can export the CSV. It's awesome. And Prize Picks is great too. You're just building lineups with player props. They might be considered a parlay elsewhere, but if you hit all 5, you 10x. Unlike a traditional parlay, if you hit 4, you still 2x your entry. You make money back if you 3x. And if you're like Matt and college basketball, college football, NFL, all of those, you can take, 1 or 2 of each, throw them all into a lineup. It doesn't have to be one sport across all 5 of your picks. It's really sweet. Or you can do the power play where if you do a 4 play prop lineup, if you hit all 4, you 10x. Very cool. Prize Picks is blowing up right now for obvious reasons. And you get a $100 first match deposit bonus when you sign up using the link. $100 first match deposit bonus, free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum, every tool on our site, not just for football. Pretty sweet. Take advantage of it. And the greatest thing about these tools too is even if you don't know some sports, like maybe you want to dabble in MMA or PGA and you don't know it all that well, the tools are going to be your best friend, hands down, no questions asked, and help you build good lineups without having to know the ins and outs of every sport. It's awesome. So, and if you do decide to sign up, right, using that link, because otherwise we can't track you, figure out how to give you the free month, join our premium Discord as well. Great community in there. A lot of good info. All right, let's, Mac Jones, I did want to ask you about. And then I guess we can dabble here with kicker and defense. I think both are very valuable as always.
I think Mac Jones is an excellent leverage play in the captain. He's definitely not as attractive as just a raw play as Ramondre Stevenson. But again, if you're playing large field, if you're playing small field, if you're playing cash, just get this out of the way. You're playing Ramondre captain and you're figuring out whatever you need to do to get slightly different because it's small field. For the large field discussion, this is where you need to figure out pivots. And Mac Jones, I think, does make sense. You're still talking about a guy who is the ball every single play. Occasionally, he puts up big games, and that's what you're hoping for here. And overall, the game environment, they're only slight favorites. So it's not like this is a team that can just embrace the run. And honestly, a guy like Ramondre might help. As long as it's not hyper concentrated, he's not getting 8 receptions like he has previously. He can still help Mac Jones from a score. Those points still count for Mac Jones. You're just hoping they're not hyper funneled to Ramondre. And it might just take some touchdown variance going to Devontae Parker, Hunter Henry, and the other pass catchers to get Mac Jones there. But I still like him as a leverage captain.
And then defense and kicker. I mean, I know, road game, West Coast for the Patriots. I would assume now that you have Marcus Brown healthy, James Conner is back fully healthy, DeAndre Hopkins healthy. I assume that this offense for Arizona should be able to put up some points. I mean, listen, far be it for me to have a ton of confidence in Cliff Kingsbury, but at the same time, I never have an issue getting to this Patriots defense. It's still, one of those high ceiling type defenses too that we've seen put up some monster scores. They're better than most in the league. And then a kicker, I have anytime you're in a game, Matt, not only just because it's a showdown, but with these low totals, you could see a lot of stalled offenses inside the 40 and a lot of field goal attempts on both sides.
Absolutely. A lot of interest in playing these guys here, especially as pivots off of your Patriots receivers we just talked about. I think if you're looking for something surefire, you're looking at kickers and defenses here, especially kickers, especially because we talked about the Patriots receivers and how we like Devontae Parker and whatnot, but ultimately it still could be a Kendrick Bourne game. And at the end of the day, we know the kickers are out there. So I feel a little more comfortable with them in cash, low risk contests, but large field, I'm still going to be taking more shots on the Patriots receivers and the alternatives on the Arizona side.
Nick Folk having a nice season. Nice season. All right, let's talk about some Arizona Cardinals here. And hey, hit that thumbs up, guys. Get us to at least 50, right? We got almost 300 watching. There's got to be a few of you, 13 specifically, that can atone for your sins here and get us north of that 50 mark. Only 13 you need to do it. That's all. Be one of the heroes this morning. Matt and I getting up early, doing the show. It's not that early. It's 9:30 here. 8:30 though in your time. You probably woke. What time do you wake up today?
5.
Okay. You wake up at 5 on the weekends too?
Yeah, usually weekends are a little busier for me. Maybe not so much now that college football's done, but
what time do you usually go to sleep?
Between 8 and 9.
Okay. That's amazing.
It's not easy.
It's amazing. I went to bed at 9:30 last night, which is very early for me. Woke up at 6:30 and felt fantastic. So there might be something to what you're doing. Might be a method to your madness.
We'll see, man.
Don't you ever feel like you're missing out though when you go to bed that early?
Like on sports?
Just anything. Life.
Well, if my friends are hanging out or something, I won't go to bed that early.
Well, I know that. Unless you pass out after a case.
That has happened before. Don't get me wrong. But no, not usually, unless I will stay up sometimes and watch really good sports games if they're still on.
What time do you work out?
So I have a friend that owns a gym, lucky enough. And it's a smaller gym. They do classes and stuff. So I usually go there after their afternoon class, get there around 1 p.m. And it's just solely because that's the time when the gym is free. Otherwise, I would definitely be a morning workout person, but just having this perk, it's kind of so I don't piss him off. And I'm going to take the advantage of having a free gym available to me, but I got to use it at a certain time kind of
For
thing.
Sure. I only asked because I was doing 8 a.m. workouts for a while. And then I switched it up and started doing mid-afternoon whenever I have a break from shows and everything, 2 o'clock. I feel like I feel better when I do the afternoon workouts. The blood's flowing and everything. There's something about the morning. Takes me a little bit to get going. I don't feel like I have as much strength early in the morning, but maybe that's just me.
I do afternoon, and I've done it for years now because of this perk. So I like the same thing.
I know a lot of people prefer to go at like 9 once everything's cleared up, but I just have I have a setup in my basement. So I just walk downstairs, which I think is almost harder sometimes because you're like, I could sit on the couch and eat a gross meal, or I could go in the basement. You know, it's a tough decision to make.
That's what my parents have too. So every time I'm there, it's the same thing.
Yeah. Miguel said, don't work out. It's a waste of time. No, it's not.
You'll feel good.
When you're older and your joints start breaking down and everything, you're going to be glad. You're going to be wishing that you did. So
and it doesn't have to be crazy. Miguel in chat says, just walk a lot. Yeah. Do whatever you like.
It's the same one that said, don't work out.
Well, walking is kind of exercise too, Miguel.
It is. There's a million different ways to do it. Yeah. Preferably I prefer to at least to use some weights just because I feel better, get that nice endorphin rush, get things going. You do a lot of cardio?
No, a lot of weights. I walk. To Miguel's point, I do weights and I walk a lot.
I walk a good amount too. It's more in the summer though. Take the dog for like a 2-3 mile walk in the morning. Winter, it starts getting tough for me because I hate treadmills. But anyway, I digress. Let's talk about the Cardinals here. No one wants to hear us talk about that, Matt. So DeAndre Hopkins. Well, actually, no, I want to start at running back here just because James Conner's workload, more so his snap share was insane last game. Workload too, 25 attempts. They managed to lose that at home. Surprise. And, you see the Chargers going for it. The 2-point conversion to close that game out. Brandon Staley, just a wild man. But 25 attempts, and you're never going to get particularly efficient production from James Conner. That's just not who he is. But he's going to get all of the red zone goal line opportunities. And he's been involved a little bit more as a pass catcher lately. It's just shocking to me that he's that much more expensive than Ramondre Stevenson. In a game like this, I will definitely be looking to get a lot of lineups with both of these guys tonight.
Absolutely. It's just a pricing error on DraftKings part specifically. But when I ran those optimals this morning, you're not getting a ton of James Conner. He came up in 40%, all utility. That's because 100% were Ramondre. But it prioritized Kyler, Mac Jones in that order, and then James Conner. It even prioritized Marquise Brown. I know we're talking about slightly different prices there, but you didn't get a ton of James Conner in optimals. So I want to watch his ownership closely today. I think we might be a little high at this point. Again, I'm always going to default to what the tools say, and I'll check back later in the day. But because of his price and because of the preference for quarterbacks and optimizers, I think we might get some positive leverage on Conner. And really, you're just hoping for one of two things. Maybe a bump in efficiency in a one-game sample, or he falls into the end zone a couple of times. And with a guy that's on the field 100% of the snaps or thereabouts, that's a possibility in every game he plays, no matter the opponent. I have a lot of interest in James Conner. I'm going to use him as a contrarian captain tonight. I think he's an excellent play, price adjusted, just due to the context of the slate. Yeah, absolutely. It's also just kind of intriguing from a matchup perspective too. When you look at the New England Patriots, I mean, look, it's a good defense all around, but their secondary has been clearly the strength of this defense this season. DVOA, they're ranked 3rd over at Football Outsiders. They are 7th in run defense DVOA though. They've shown some significant improvement there as well. But it's funny too, because just looking last week against the Bills, right? In that game, that was another primetime game. It was 132 rushing yards that they allowed to a Bills team that, generally speaking, is not going to beat you on the ground. So going into this one, I wouldn't be surprised if, like you said, Conner isn't particularly efficient because that's just not the type of runner he is. But could he get into the end zone a couple of times? Always. We saw it last year. There's no reason it can't happen again today. It's funny, though, because usually you and I are always trying to break down the backup running backs on a showdown slate because when you only have one game to choose from, you're getting value there, and once in a while they can pop off. I'm just not really sure who you can look towards, barring an injury on New England or Arizona behind Ramondre Stevenson and James Conner. 100% agree. You're throwing darts on Keontae Ingram, Kevin Harris, and hoping for an injury. Those are large field tournament plays, and you're kind of dependent on an injury, just to be frank about it. I don't see a path for them any other way.
Me neither. What about with the pass catchers, starting with Brown and Hopkins? This is where it gets interesting. Hopkins played 74% of snaps last game, but I'm not particularly worried about that. The fact that he was on the field for less than Marquise Brown. He's still a stud. But Brown returns and plays 97%. What did the route participation look like from this game in week 12 with Marquise Brown and DeAndre Hopkins playing their first game together of the season?
Yeah, you had DeAndre Hopkins, 48 snaps of 65. Routes run, he was at 30 of 34. Marquise Brown, 63 of 65 snaps, 33 of 34 routes.
Okay, so basically almost the same route participation there, even though Brown was on the field more than Hopkins was.
Yeah, I would anticipate these two players are near 100% outside of getting dinged up or needing a breather here and there. They're going to be the main two receivers.
And Hopkins too, 2.9 yards per route run, only one game. But just to point out, he's still so good. How are you approaching the quarterback, the Kyler Murray stacks with his pass catchers in a game like this?
Yeah, so Kyler comes up in a ton of optimals. He's in 100%, but he's in 100% utility. I think you could use him in the captain and use multiple receivers, and you're immediately going to be contrarian just from playing Vermondre in this situation, probably in the flex. And Kyler does have mobility. There's a ceiling with him for sure. There is a price gap, so your lineup's probably not going to be quite as attractive or just project quite as high. But Kyler is one of these players that can break the slate, and we've seen it at multiple points in his career. It's just kind of been a down year for Kyler. This Patriots defense certainly doesn't scare me, so I think playing Kyler captain makes some sense too. I have a lot of interest in captains from the Arizona side.
Me too. And it makes me wonder, just based on how the New England defense has been pretty good and how New England has some, cheap options with no, obviously, no Jacoby Myers, even though they're not getting a lot of captain ownership. It does make me wonder if you're getting guys that are potentially under-owned in the captain spot here for Arizona. It looks like right now they're, I don't know. Do you think these guys are going to be under-owned at captain?
I think they are. I think the top three options, particularly Kyler and DeAndre for sure. I don't know about Marquise Brown. He's drawing a fair amount of ownership right now, and he comes up a fair amount in optimals.
And just way, way cheaper than DeAndre Hopkins and Murray.
Yeah.
Way cheaper.
With DeAndre, I think it's just a matter of he's in the same price range as the QBs and Ramondre, and you can't play all four.
Exactly. Yeah, that's very true. You're not getting to everybody there. It's not like you're too worried about getting Mac Jones into those lineups, but yeah, and even the pass catchers for New England, they're not dirt cheap either. So it's not like you're just loading up and then going with a super cheap guy here. They're kind of mid-range for a showdown slate. Then you've got guys like Greg Dortch. This is where I guess it gets kind of interesting. We can mix tight ends here as well. Trey McBride, he's just simply never going to see considerable volume, especially now that Marquise Brown and DeAndre Hopkins are finally playing alongside each other. But he is going to be on the field a lot. He should run a fair amount of routes. He ran 24 routes last game with Hopkins and Brown on the field together. James Conner ran 29 routes in that game, which is pretty insane. Somebody was asking about Greg Dortch in chat. He didn't play last game, so that isn't great. Robbie Anderson played 42% of snaps, ran 14 routes, was targeted 3 times. AJ Green, 23 routes, was targeted twice. So there were a few guys that were mixed in there along the way, in Green, in Robbie Anderson, that are the clear secondary, definitely not your top options if you're Kyler Murray. But on a showdown slate, you're talking McBride, Anderson, Green. I think those are the 3 guys that we should be talking about here as far as how we want to approach them at their respective price points.
Absolutely. And from a football perspective, we've seen Marquise Brown and DeAndre Hopkins play one game together this year.
One game. Yep.
It was their last game. And we didn't have Rondale Moore or Dortch.
And we should point out that Rondale Moore is, in fact, out already for this game.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people are coming into this game assuming Greg Dortch has a role, and I'm not ready to make that assumption. we've seen Marquise Brown play the slot. Now, he hasn't played it in every single game. This has ebbed and flowed quite a bit this year, depending on the available personnel they've had. And as you can see, they've had one of the starters out every single game this year. They've been missing a person. So when it's been, like some of these other slot style receivers, they've moved Marquise Brown into the slot. And that could be something they do here, which has me a little worried about Dortch, who they've shown a direct willingness to just park on the bench, get 3% of snaps. They've done that multiple times this year. So my question is, heading into this game, what is the field going to do? Are they assuming Dortch has the slot role and it's going to be Marquise Brown and DeAndre Hopkins outside? Or, which is a very real possibility, is it DeAndre Hopkins, one of these old dusty AJ Green, Robbie Anderson, splitting outside reps and then putting Marquise Brown in the slot, which they've done a lot. And last week, they actually used the 12 personnel more than they have at any point this year. Trey McBride still 79% of the snaps, but you saw Steven Anderson 18%, Max Williams 26%. I'm not a math whiz, but that's well over 100%. So, I mean, that 12 personnel did occur far more than it has at any point this season for Arizona. There's a lot of worry with Dortch. I'm going to try to play the ownership game here, and rather than myself make assumptions on what Cliff Kingsbury is going to do, just take the low own plays here. I saw a question in chat how much Dortch was coming up in optimals. 40%. He was the second highest pass catcher behind Marquise Brown. I think that's just a price thing. And if it is 40% Dortch, I'm going to be underweight.
I'm probably not going to have much Dortch at all. And maybe that's a bad I don't know, man. Like week 6 was the last game that Rondale Moore and Brown played together. You had Rondale Moore in the slot 85% of the time. Marquise Brown was lined up in the slot. I keep saying snot. Lined up in the slot 27% of the time. And then you fast forward to week 12 and you've got Marquise Brown 73% of the time he was lined up in the slot. Like how much do you need Greg Dortch if you've got DeAndre Hopkins, who's just like a great outside receiver, Marquise Brown, who you can move around, but he's good in the slot. And now you have Hopkins outside as that presence that you didn't have earlier in the year. Like you weren't lining Rondale Moore up outside so you could get Marquise Brown in the slot, Matt. Now you have a lot more outs here, it feels like.
Yeah, I mean, Marquise Brown is a small receiver too.
Yeah.
And I mean, I kind of like looking at weeks 9 and 10 for this, where we did not have Marquise Brown, but we had Rondale Moore. And their 3 wide receiver sets were DeAndre Hopkins. He played 94% of both. Rondale Moore was at 90, 97. But then in week 9, you had 83% Robbie Anderson. You only had 8% Greg Dortch. The following week, they benched Robbie Anderson, but it wasn't Greg Dortch that came in the lineup. It was AJ Green. So, I mean, it seems like Greg Dortch is behind both of them, or at least one of them. And maybe I'm wrong, but if we're assuming Greg Dortch just plays the slot, I don't think we can. And, this also could be a rotation. They've had games where it's 44% AJ Green, 46% Robbie Anderson. And then does Dortch just go into a rotation as well? Like week 7, Dortch, 53% of the snaps, they use Robbie Anderson on 20. It was a bit more of a rotation. Nothing has been consistent with Arizona at wide receiver outside of Hopkins and Marquise Brown playing all the snaps when they're healthy.
Right. And that's my mistake, by the way. I forgot that Dortch was hurt last game. I forgot that he was hurt. I thought that he just wasn't seeing the field. So clearly that changes things a little bit, but I still worry a little bit here.
Yeah, he has 4 games under 10% of the snaps where he was healthy.
Right. It's not like, he was playing a ton and then he just stopped playing. All right. So if you had to guess, what do you think the snap share breakdown looks like today? I'm not asking for you, to be perfect here, but like, how does Greg Dortch fit in? If you were making projections, what would it look like as far as his, snap participation or his snap share goes?
And me doing projections, it would be Hopkins and Marquise Brown, all of the snaps and routes. And I wouldn't give 100% of the slot snaps to Marquise Brown. I would give Dortch a little bit, but kind of just to go through this in like a cascading procedure. 100% for Hopkins, 100% for Marquise Brown. I would put AJ Green third. If you look at the full body of work this season, he's been the player that's been on the field the most is the wide receiver 3. I would probably put him around 60, and he's going to be the boundary receiver. So then it kind of depends on how much do you have Marquise Brown in the slot? How much do you have him on the perimeter? I think he rotates both. I would probably give Dortch around 40% of the snaps, and then Robbie Anderson, whatever's left.
Okay.
These are guessing, though. And I mean, we're guessing. Projections are going to be guessing for us. Every other projection provider around the industry. Because again, in why we're guessing, we've had one game where Marquise Brown and Hopkins have played together. Rondale Moore is not active tonight. You're guessing on the snap shares of AJ Green and Robbie Anderson, which have ebbed and flowed all year. It is guessing.
Do you like Trey McBride?
We're not guessing on him. He's going to play on the field. He's going to be out there almost every single snap. At what point does he get some targets? And at what point do we get some efficiency? I don't know the answer to that. He's a rookie tight end. He did win the Mackey Award. He was the best tight end in college football last year, but he has not been able to replicate the Zach Ertz production. I've been losing a lot of money on him, but I think I'm going to continue to take shots because he's on the field a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, he's going to be on the field. It's barring an injury or anything insane, he's going to be on the field. There's just no two ways around that.
Who do you like one for one? Dortch or McBride? They're essentially the same price. McBride's way lower owned.
McBride, well, ownership 1, and 2, I know he's going to be on the field. I'm not excited about it. I don't think any of us should be excited about Trey McBride, but it's a showdown slate. I'll take the guy that's probably going to get 80 or more % of snaps. And look, he still ran, 24 routes in that last game. So he's not just strictly blocking either. If you get him out there for 80% of snaps again, and a New England team with strong cornerback play, it's not out of the realm of possibility that Trey McBride, because they're basically the same price. So lower ownership on a guy who I know is going to be on the field. Matt, I think I'd rather have Trey McBride.
Yeah, he was 3rd on the team in routes in their last game, excluding James Conner. Those are different routes. I mean, among the pass catchers.
Right. Yeah.
I agree with you. I would rather have Trey McBride right now, as gross as that is. And I'll probably eat those words and lose more money, but that's what I would do as it stands.
Dortch. Yeah, Dortch is getting more. Trey McBride's ownership is very low. Very
Makes
low.
sense. He's been bad, but he also plays a ton more.
I'm not saying he's good. Don't get me wrong. I can't help but wonder how many people are going to get funneled to Dortch because the last game he played was week 11 and he had, 9 for 103 on 10 targets. Of course, that was without Marquise Brown. So that's significant, but it does make me wonder. People pull that up and go, oh man, Greg Dortch, heck of a game.
Didn't Rondale get hurt in that game too? Yeah, Rondale 3% of snaps. Rondale started. The only reason Dortch got that work is Rondale got hurt on like the first play.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah, he got hurt very early in that game. Literally he played 2 snaps. Good point. Now he is out today, of course. Like we wouldn't even be talking about Greg Dortch if Rondale Moore was also in. But anybody else here?
I don't think so. We talked about all the receivers I think that are going to be active. They did use more 12 personnel. Steven Anderson and Max Williams played a lot. That's like your Neil Orfield style GPP plays. You had 3 routes for Williams, 4 for Steven Anderson. I mean, maybe you could argue Trey McBride's been so bad that at some point he loses work. They haven't shown the willingness to do that at any point this year. So I don't buy it'll happen today. But if you're trying to build a bull case for one of these atrocious tight end punts, that would probably be it. I'm not going to play any of them, but their names worth mentioning. Keontae Ingram's going to play probably 5 snaps or fewer. Just a name to throw out there if you're playing Millie Maker style tournaments.
Want to build a lineup?
I think this is going to be a really fun day to build a lineup.
I think it is too. Before we do, you're going to see us use all these tools. We're going to, talk about, we have been, ownership and the optimal percentages and leverage. One more time, if you guys are looking for 2 free months. Did I say 1 month before? I did, because that's Prize Picks and the link's in the description. But if you want 2 free months, BetMGM. This is the best part about this is like if one isn't available to you in your state, the other probably is. BetMGM, 2 free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum, $240 value. We just keep sweetening the pot here. I mean, what else can I say? You're taking $10 using the link in the description or the one in chat. Okay. Taking $10, putting it on anything, not a parlay or an odds boost. It has to be like a straight bet, which is fine, right? Because if that bet wins, you get your money. It doesn't matter. The bet loses, you still get it back because not only do you get 2 free months, but you're also getting up to $1,000 risk-free bet. So 2 free months, Stokastic plus Platinum, all of our tools for every single sport on the site, plus a risk-free bet up to $1,000. Not one or the other, not either or, both of them. Just take $10 when you sign up. Use the link, click the link, take $10 when you sign up. Put it on anything. When that settles, that picture of Eric, every time it gets me, man. When it settles, you'll get hit up by BetMGM. Get your 2 free months of Stokastic plus Platinum. And if your bet loses, no matter what it is, you get it back in free bets. It's as literally as easy a promo as Matt, I got no other words for it. It's just like, if you're not taking advantage of this, people can't be helped. That's all I'm going to say.
The only thing that would be easier is if somebody gave you like $100 bill. Like, it's literally, there's so much free value involved with these. It does not get better in terms of our industry.
Yeah. It's a $240 value, every sport, every tool on our site, plus up to $1,000 risk-free bet. Check it out. $10 is all you got to deposit. But if you want to really access that risk-free bet, like take advantage of it, then if you have extra money laying around, like the no-brainers are cool and everything, but sharper players always prefer a risk-free bet because it actually makes more sense when you have the money to put into it. But either way, it doesn't matter what your bankroll looks like. $10 is all you need. So we'll see you over there. All right. And like I said, Prize Picks, link in the description and in chat. Same with BetMGM. If you're watching after the fact, you could just hop in the description and find it there. Let's build a lineup. I say we go large field today and have some fun with this one.
Yeah, let's do it. And the one distinction I'll make there is if you're playing small field, I would captain Ramondre and get different elsewhere. But for large field, this is where we can be really creative.
Yep. All right. Let's shoot for first at captain.
All right, me first or you?
No, we're gonna shoot for it.
Oh, shoot! Do you do shoot?
We're gonna shoot for it. 1, 2, 3, shoot. Yeah.
Okay.
Best out of 1.
Okay.
All right, ready? 1, 2, 3, shoot. I can't see your hand. Oh, that's all right. I couldn't see your hand.
I swear I didn't cheat.
I believe you. And it's delayed, so you went after me. So like this is Matt. No, go ahead. Who do you want to captain? Because I'm
exploiting all the edges, Laffy.
What's up?
I'm exploiting all the edges.
Yeah. Who do you want?
I think we go Kyler. We go an expensive captain, we take one on the Arizona side.
All right, let's do it. I was going to go Devontae Parker. Let's go. Ooh. Let's go Kyler. Well, hey, it's fine. I mean, both of these are going to be interesting. I'm going to make the easy play here and go Ramondre Stevenson because we're playing him regardless, right?
Yeah, I think so. All right. So we have an expensive captain. We have Ramondre. I think DeAndre is going to come in under-owned relative to what the field is going to be doing, playing the other expensive guys. Let's stack Kyler with DeAndre Hopkins.
I like it. So Marquise Brown's pretty cheap, but like the Murray, so we have 42. That's going to be tough.
We've got a couple values though.
It's not that hard to do.
No.
I actually think I'm going to throw a kicker in here and I'm going to go with Nick Folk.
Nick Folk.
I think it makes a lot of sense. Actually, you get Stevenson, you got Folk. Right now, we don't have any New England pass catchers. I think it makes a lot of sense to go Nick Folk in this spot.
I think that's completely fine. I'm going to go Trey McBride. Complete what is now a double stack with Kyler Murray, and that gives us 62. So we have a lot of really good options left.
All right. So we have 2 pass catchers with Captain Murray. We don't have James Conner, which is okay. Conner could very realistically in this game, Matt, go like 15 for 50 and no touchdowns and a couple receptions for a few yards.
Yeah. And the thing with him is he's expensive. So like we're probably just betting on DeAndre having a better game than James Conner straight up at this point.
Yep. You know what? I'm going to go Devontae Parker. I'm going to throw my boy in there.
Love it. So we've built a lot of leverage. We didn't play Ramondre Captain. We didn't play Dortch as a punt. We used Trey McBride instead, who's going to be very low owned, and we used a kicker. We have 400 left on the table, and if you're still worried about that, lucky for you is there's Kendrick Bourne, Nelson Aguilar right below. There's more kickers and defenses. There's other ways to build in more leverage if you don't feel like this is enough.
Absolutely. El Negro Logo said, using a kicker, AB would be proud. Yeah, he would. Yeah, he would. Doing that for you, AB. And we are one like away from 100. We will get there. I know it because this is a perfect time to close the show. There's somebody out there that's like, let me throw these guys a bone. Follow Matt at Matt_Gajewski. Hey, check out everything he's got going on from college football or college basketball, everything in Discord, in the Odd Shopper Discord. If you guys are into betting, we got the Odd Shopper channel. We have the Discord with all of our premium insider access picks, all that great stuff. And hit him up at Matt_Gajewski on Twitter. Me at Laffy_D, LOUGHY_D, 112 likes. There we go. And shout out to Mike Lawrence for producing this one. NBA strategy show coming up next. We'll see you guys back here for Monday Night Football or Thursday Night Football. Peace.